Hi, how are you? This is Desert Agave Fiber Arts, Episode 8. I'm Christina, and I'm still here. I'm still pursuing joy through fiber arts. One thing that I've seen over and over again, and that I've heard other people say, is that joy is resistance in the world as it is right now, and I absolutely believe that. I want to add that joy as resistance isn't enough. At least for me, I find that the reason why I'm pursuing joy and the reason why it's an act of resistance is because the joy gives me resilience. And right now, resilience is what we all need. And resilience is what I need in order to be of service. It's important to me that I do what I can to resist the terrible things happening in the United States right now, to do what I can to help people, even more than that. And the joy fortifies me. A therapist said to me recently that all the parts of my life right now have things going on that are hard. A therapist described it as a cascade. She said, you have a cascade of events right now. And that's not fun. That's hard. But I have realized I'm doing better now than I ever have before in similar circumstances. And I'm positive it's because of knitting and spinning and all the other fiber arts that I do. They give me resilience. They mean that I can still do things to try to make the world better, in addition to doing things to help the people in my little circle around me who I love. And that's worth something. And I hope that the joy that you find in fiber arts, I hope it gives you that resilience too, so that you can keep doing what you can do to make the world better. And with that was a lot, especially if this is your first episode, so let me just introduce myself back up a little bit. My name is Christina. This is Desert Agave Fiber Arts. I'm a Latinx, fat, bipolar, autistic writer and fiber artist with PTSD. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I grew up in Wisconsin, but have lived in New Mexico since 1998. I've been a writer since forever and a fiber artist since around 2021. Exploring my creativity through the fiber arts has reinvigorated my writing and led me away from trauma and depression and towards joy. In this podcast, I'll primarily discuss knitting and sometimes spinning, wool processing, sewing and embroidery, and often mental health. I'm not an expert in any of these, but the process of discovery, experimentation, and wild leaps into the dark brings me joy, and I hope to share that with you. My giant purple NUTIDEN sweater is getting one last hurrah this season. It has mostly been way too warm here in New Mexico to wear a giant purple sweater, but today the high is only about 50. It's a horrible spring day here. I know most of you love spring. In New Mexico, spring brings wind, and the wind brings these horrible dust storms. They're really awful and gross, and there are beautiful days in spring, but there are an awful lot of horrible, gross, windy days, and boy, have we been seeing those this week. But one little bright spot is that it means things have cooled down enough that I can give the sweater one last wearing before I put it away for the season. And you know, I really love this sweater. I talked about it a couple episodes ago. It's the gentle Lopi, designed by Melody Hoffman, knitted in this beautiful purple NUTIDEN, and I love this sweater. It's a big, boxy, sort of oversized sweatshirt of a fit, which is exactly what I wanted. I modified it a little bit. I made a slightly smaller size on top and then graded out to a larger size on the bottom, and it fits just what I wanted. In that sort of big positive ease kind of a way. And with that, today, I'm going to talk to you about finished objects, and then I'm going to take you on a tour. Maybe it'll be a fun tour, maybe it'll be the dullest tour you've ever been on. You'll just have to wait and see. But I have 3 finished objects since the last time I talked to you. One of them isn't here with me anymore, and that is the Annelie shawl designed by well, I'm blanking on her name, Little Skein, and by Anne of Little Skein. And Anyway, I knitted her blossom sweater and Valley of Little Skein. I knitted her blossom sweater that I talked about last time, and I was also working on her Avonlea shawl. I finished it, and I don't have it to show you. And the reason why is because I gave it to somebody who I think needs it more than me. This is ridiculously low tech, but I can't show it to you on my phone because I'm using my phone to film. And I do not have faith in myself to figure out how to edit it to make a nice little picture appear right here while I talk to you. So I'm just gonna hold it up. I literally printed this on my printer. This is the one and only time I wore it before I gave it away. Look how beautiful that is. The colors aren't quite right on the printer. If you want to see a better representation of the colors, you can follow my link below to my Instagram post. But I think you get a sense of what a beautiful, squishy, earthy shawl it is. I really was pleased with how it came out, really proud of it. My other two finished objects for this month are socks, and these were both old works in progress. These were not new cast-ons. First, there's this pair of blue socks. I literally took them off my husband's feet. He works from home, and he was in his office wearing these all cozy, and I walked in and I said, I need the socks. I have to introduce them to the podcast. So as soon as this is over, I promised I would take them back to him. I cast these on a little over a year ago, I think, and then I got bored of working on them and I stopped. And I picked them back up when I was working on my works in progress kind of whip down at the beginning of this year, and I finished them. I'm really pleased with how they turned out. They are knitted in Rauma Vandre yarn. One of the things that's cool about this yarn, it's about a worsted weight, and it's intended to be a sock yarn. It's all wool, no nylon, a lot of sort of really rustic long wools in there. And when you finish knitting the socks, you are actually supposed to put them in the washing machine and wash them in very warm water for the first time. Then after that, you're supposed to wash them more carefully. But that first time you wash them in the washing machine, agitating on warm water, and it doesn't felt them because the wool's so hardy, it doesn't seem to really felt, but it did kind of bloom, get a little fuzzier, and it is supposed to make them more hard wearing too. I knitted my husband a different pair of the same socks mainly in brown and then with white toes and heels last year, and he wore them every single day that winter as his house socks, basically as his slippers. He would wear them around the house. And I will say the yarn is hardy, but it's not so hardy that 1.5 winters of wearing them every single day won't put holes in them. So there's another pair that has giant holes. I darned them over the summer and then the darns wore through. I'm planning for that other pair to just sew some felt onto the bottoms and make them true slippers. But in the meantime, I thought he deserved a second pair since he clearly loved them so much. So here they are. I really like them. Really happy with how they turned out. I will probably make him another pair next year. I've got some green yarn, so I think the next pair might be green with brown toes and heels. And then my other finished work in progress was, in an earlier episode, I talked about how I was knitting 2-in-1 socks. I don't know if anyone remembers or if anyone saw that episode, but basically the method is you knit a very long tube with a cuff on the top, and you knit a long straight tube that eventually ends in a toe, and then you cut that tube in half, and you put a toe on the half that doesn't have a toe, and you put a cuff on the half that doesn't have a cuff, and then you insert some afterthought heels. And that's what I did. I am glad I made these socks because, one, I love the yarn. It's Opal yarn. The colors are so fun. And also, it was just fun to try a new construction method. But I gotta say, I don't think I'm gonna do it again. These are not my best fitting pair of socks. Let's just put it that way. I will wear them. I love wearing wool socks. This winter, I think I wore a pair of socks that I did not make, maybe once. Every other day, I was wearing a pair of socks that were made by me. I actually get kind of ornery and cranky if I have to wear socks that aren't mine, that I didn't make. I don't know why, they make me happy. And if it makes me happy, I'm gonna do it. So these will make me happy. I will wear them. I will wear them a lot. But I am not thrilled about the fit. And basically, probably, maybe everyone else knew this, but I didn't. But this particular heel construction, it's a toe. So you know how you get to the toe and you decrease on the sides until it's very small? The pattern said to decrease to like 8 stitches and then to just put the yarn through them and tighten them all. I actually decreased and then did a did the grafting, because I don't think the grafting's that hard and I prefer that. And in these socks, you literally then, when you go to the heel and you pick up all the stitches in the heel after you cut it open, you do the exact same thing. You knit a toe on the heel. You decrease along the sides, and then when I got to the end, I did the grafting, and they're okay. But I don't know about your feet, but my heels are not actually shaped like a toe. They're shaped like a heel, and I really feel like there are other heel methods that do a much better job of being heel shaped. So these were fun, these were cool, but I think I will keep on knitting my socks one at a time. And that leads me to the tour, which may or may not be fun for you. Let's find out. I decided, why not take you on a tour of every single pair of socks I've knitted since I started knitting a little over 2 years ago. It's really almost every single pair, and I'll tell you why. It's because one pair I don't wear. It's the first pair. I did a good job. They're good socks, but I made them too narrow, so they don't actually fit over my feet. So that pair is just sort of hanging out, being proud of themselves for being my first ever pair of socks, but I don't wear them. And then the other pair, I think it's in my laundry pile somewhere. I've got to be careful when I do my next load to make sure I pull them out, because I hand wash my socks. So that pair is, they're Andrea Mowry's everyday socks. I actually love them a lot, and I wear them a lot, and they're not here. But every other pair that I've been wearing all winter long is here. So let me take you on a tour. Here is a pair of vanilla socks with the heel flap and gusset. I've been wearing these for a couple of years now. These were one of the first pairs I made, and they're holding up good and they're gorgeous. The yarn is Woolens and Nosh self-striping. It was the Advent Skein, not this year, but the year before. And I love these socks. They're one of my favorite pairs. Really, really good. I'm not going to name who the designer was for this particular vanilla sock, because it's not a designer that I'm supporting at this point. So I'm going to be using other designers from now on for reasons I won't go into. But here is another very early pair. It's actually, I'm going to show you two at once. These are two very early pairs. They're DK vanilla socks. I made this pair first. This pair I don't wear very often. They actually fit fine. They're good, but I made them out of silly yarn. It was good yarn, don't get me wrong. In fact, it was more of Anne Valley's Little Skein yarn. But the thing is, this yarn is 100% DK merino with no nylon. Fairly soft spin. It just wasn't meant to be sock yarn. I mean, and it wasn't sold as sock yarn, but for whatever reason, a very early knitter me opened up the yarn when it came in the mail, and I said, this yarn is beautiful, it wants to be on my feet. I immediately cast it on and made a pair of socks. Miraculously, there are no holes in them, partly because I only wear them about once a month or so in the winter, so they haven't gotten that many wears. I knitted them on US 4 needles, and I actually ran out of yarn, which is why the toes are purple, which is actually cute, I don't mind. And they're fun socks, but they, I probably won't again knit merino socks with no nylon and, you know, no tight spin again. This was a one-time thing, but I do enjoy them. After those, I thought, how can I get a pair of DK socks out of one DK skein of yarn without running out? And I decided to try smaller needles. So this is the same pattern, but knitted on US 3 needles instead of US 4. You can see they're a little bit smaller, and you can see I managed to get through the entire length of my foot without having to go to something else. This yarn actually doesn't have any nylon in it. It's merino and silk. Or I think it might be BFL and silk. Yeah, it's BFL and silk. It's from Sweet Georgia. dyed by them. They still have this kind of yarn. I was just curious. Again, this was very early on. I was experimenting, and I wondered to myself, I thought, would silk make a sock more durable, just like nylon would? So far, the answer seems to be yes, because again, I wear these socks much more often than I wear the pink ones, and again, no holes. Here is my one and only pair of handspun socks, all handspun by me. The wool is Shetland wool, the pink is just Shetland, the gray is Shetland with silk, and the pattern is Andrea Mowry's Bear Paw socks. They're knitted toe up with I believe this is called a Flegel heel. I like the Flegel heel. It's reasonably heel shaped. Some people complain it's a little funny looking. I guess so, but I don't mind funny looking. I enjoy these socks, and I'm so proud of the fact that I spun the yarn from them. I wore them a lot this winter again, no holes. The next pair, I would say of all my vanilla socks, this is my best fitting pair. And this, I will tell you the pattern, is written by a friend of mine. They're the Practically Perfect socks. I talked about them in earlier episodes by Maple Tree Lane & Co. These are also toe-up socks with, I mean, I guess, I'm not sure, maybe if the designer of Maple Tree Lane & Co. sees this, she'll chime in and tell us what kind of heel this is. I don't think it's a Flegel heel, but whatever it is, it works. It's basically got a heel flap and a gusset, but you do it toe up. And the pattern is really carefully written, very careful about telling you how to find your best fit. And sure enough, these socks fit me fantastically. They also are made from yarn from Woolens and Nosh, and so more of the self-striping. And these are one of my favorite pairs of socks. They're gorgeous, they fit, they do everything you want a sock to do, and again, no holes. I'm gonna show you the last two socks I'm gonna show you were both knitted using Miss Evil Knits Cura sock recipe. If you just, I'll put a link to it. It's not a pattern, it's a recipe. She goes over it in a series of YouTube videos. And it's actually meant mostly for knitting socks out of NUTIDEN yarn, held double, which I absolutely plan to do, maybe soon. But I first decided to use her sock recipe on just regular DK yarn. I think this is yarn from the UK. It's got a little nylon in it. I can't remember offhand exactly what kind it is, but I enjoyed it. And this is a great fitting pair of socks. This is my best fitting pair of DK weight socks, absolutely. And I carefully, followed her instructions about putting it on my foot as I knitted it, and they fit fantastically. I also carefully wrote down all the numbers for how many rows I did for various parts. So when I did my next pair using the same recipe, also using some DK weight yarn, this is more Woolens and Nosh, the Advent Skein from this last year. Instead of putting them on my feet, I just followed the row counts and made the socks, and they fit fine. I can wear them. They do not fit as well as this pair. So I've learned my lesson. Next time I follow the recipe, I'm not just going to be lazy and follow my row counts. I'm going to actually try it on my foot periodically so that I can come up with another pair that fits just as well. But I really enjoy the heel that Miss Evil Knits tells you how to make. I mean, it's very satisfyingly heel shaped, I think. And it works on my foot. And that's it. That's not that many pairs of socks when you consider that in the winter I wear my hand knit socks every day. So one of my goals as I move through spring and summer and early fall, which is still quite hot here, is definitely going to be to keep working on socks. I want as many pairs as possible next year because I love wearing hand knit socks. I wear them every day, and clearly if I'm going to wear them every day, I need more. So that is a fun goal that I'm enjoying. And that leads me to my works in progress. I guess the first one I'll show you is I've been careful about not doing too many cast-ons, or I was being careful about not doing too many cast-ons. Now it's sort of a free-for-all. But I decided in the month of March, I finished 2 pairs of old work-in-progress socks I decided I had earned a new sock cast on, and here it is. If you pay attention to the latest patterns, you might recognize what this is. These are the Grandpa socks, designed by Alicia Plummer. I just cast them on, I don't know, maybe 3 days ago. It's a very new pattern. I think it was released last week. And I love them. How I came about choosing these is I decided I was allowed to cast on a new pair of socks. It was very exciting. I looked in my ridiculous stash of sock yarn, so much sock yarn for someone who's only been knitting for 2 years. Really very silly. But I had a lot of fun picking out this yarn. I decided this color would be the main color, and this pink would either be heels and toes or maybe color work. At this point, I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. Both of these are the same kind of sock yarn. They're both Mondim, which is another sock yarn that does not have any nylon in it. It's all wool, and I love the colors. I love the way it feels. So I chose the Mondim in these two colors, and then I went and I looked at patterns. I considered doing a Summer Lee pattern, maybe one of her Colorwork Cuff Club socks. My favorite is still the first one she released, that very folk art looking flower. I thought about doing the socks in green with the flower in pink. I still think that would be gorgeous. But I decided I was more in the mood for a textured sock with colorful heels and toes than I was for a colorwork sock. So then I looked at various texture patterns, thought about a ribbed sock, thought about, again, a Summer Lee pattern, but then the Grandpa socks were released and I just loved them. I love this sort of squishy, ribby texture, and so far this is a treat to knit. It kind of works in increments of 2. You do 2 rows one way and then 2 rows another way, and you alternate, and that means that I'm constantly sitting down, even if I only have 5 minutes, and I think I can knock out 2 rows, and it's going well. It's only been a few days, and I'm a good way into the first one. My plan is to knit these not quite 2 at a time, but 2 sort of side by side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit this down about 6 inches, get it ready for the heel flap. Then I'm going to cut the yarn, take my other pair of US 1 needles, and knit that cuff down 6 inches. Then I'll do each of their heel flaps using the pink yarn, and then one at a time I'll do the foot up to the toe, and then once they're both are at that point, I'll then give each of them a pink toe. So that way they'll both get finished around the same time. I don't tend to get second sock syndrome exactly, but it's really satisfying to finish them both nearly simultaneously. I do find it a little frustrating to finish one whole sock and then realize I've got a whole nother sock to do. I do it, I don't get frozen, I don't get stuck on one sock, but it's more fun for me if I do it this way. And I'm knitting these on ChowGoo's Fixed US 1s, bought specifically for sock knitting. I spent last year experimenting a lot with different needles to use for socks. When I first started learning how to knit socks, I hated Magic Loop. Ugh, I hated it so much. So I learned on DPNs, and I used DPNs for a while. Eventually got tired of DPNs, experimented with using 2 circulars, experimented with using flexi flips. These were mostly done on little 11-inch circulars, and kind of weirdly, in the 2 years since I started knitting, I have come around to Magic Loop. It doesn't feel as fiddly and annoying as it used to. I like that it allows me to knit with 5-inch long needles instead of little bitty needles, and basically I'm knitting these Magic Loop, and the last couple socks I've done Magic Loop. I'm still really glad I know how to use DPNs, because sometimes that's really handy, mostly when I'm making Frog and Toad in their clothes, which is a thing I have to get back to. They still need more clothes. The DPNs, I don't know how you would do that on Magic Loop. DPNs are essential, and I'm glad I already knew how to use them. But for socks, for now at least, I'm not a DPN gal anymore. But really enjoying these, hoping to finish them sooner rather than later, but we'll see. Okay. My next work in progress has not gotten a lot of love the last couple weeks. I'm not falling out of love with it. I still love it. It's the Riggies cardigan. And I finished one side. It's kind of on this cord, so I can't unfurl it all the way for you, but it's the left-hand front of the cardigan. It'll go like this. And yeah, I was glad to finish it. And then I have cast on and started the right. As you can see, it's just sort of a mess and it's mid-row and it's barely started. And you know, it's not the Riggies' fault. It's the world's fault, basically. There have been a lot of, I call them gremlins. There's like a lot of gremlins in my head when I sit down to knit, and it's really easy to get distracted and to go into sort of a bad thought place. And basically, for the most part, the garter stitch back and forth is not engrossing enough to keep the gremlins away. So for now, most of my knitting energy, when I have, you know, a substantial amount of time to knit, not just 5 minutes, has been going into more intricate things. And what kind of intricate things will you say? Well, color work and lace. Let me show you. I completely on a whim decided to cast on for the Iris hat by Trin Annelie. This is a project that is kind of meant to be a swatch for the sweater, and to answer that question, no one has asked. Yes, I do plan to eventually make the sweater. It's fingering weight. I am a very novice color work person, barely done any at all, so I'm actually super proud of this. I've been knitting color work by holding yarn, one in each hand, and working really hard to make my floats be loose enough, and I enjoyed the heck out of this. I think I did this much in less than a week, maybe 3 or 4 days of good work. And I haven't been working on it the last week or two, but I will absolutely go back to it. Kind of what's been happening lately with my brain gremlins is I work pretty monogamously on one engrossing thing, and eventually my brain gets itchy, and it's like I get too good at it, or, you know, too practiced at it, and my brain's like, nope, 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 you need something else now to keep yourself happy. So then I switch to another project. So I've got 3 kind of engrossing, intricate projects going around, and I just sort of switch from one to the other, depending on what the itchy place in my brain tells me. So for now, this is resting, but I have no doubt that I will get back to it. The other thing I've been working on, again, when that satisfies the gremlins in the brain, is the Virdek shawl. Gudrund Johnson is the designer, and the yarn is Jameson's of Shetland. I really like how this is turning out. I think it's super cool looking, and especially when it's blocked. I mean, that lace is just going to be gorgeous. I'm going to wear the heck out of this. I'm going a little off script because the shawl as designed is all one color. I'm not doing it one color. One triangle will be this color, one triangle will be this color, and the seam that joins them will be this color. And maybe no one but me would do it that way, but I think it will make a very me shawl. I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, when I'm working on it, I'm really enjoying this one. This was the most recent one I worked on. I worked on it monogamously for a week or so. And then just a couple days ago, the brain went, no, you gotta switch. So I switched back to another shawl that I cast on recently. And this is the Blommoor. Blommoor is Swedish for flowers, designed by Marion Bulin, and it is knit in NUTIDEN single strand. My intention had been to only have one lace shawl going on at a time, or one lace anything going on at a time. But even as I loved working on the Virdek, I found myself really wanting to work in NUTIDEN. I was craving that experience. And you know, NUTIDEN is very particular because it's so delicate. Your hands have to stay so soft. You can't have too much tension. And I think that's what I wanted. I wanted to be forced not to have tension. The Shetland spindrift yarn, I love it, but it's pretty hardy. It's got opinions. It talks to you. It can take some beating up. You can put it under tension. Sometimes that's what I want. Sometimes I want to knit with like fairy gossamer, which is what I feel like I'm doing when I'm knitting in NUTIDEN single strand. I only before had knitted NUTIDEN double strand. This sweater was knit using the double strands. Knitting it single strand is a whole different thing. And this is the first time I've done it, so this is just kind of an experiment. You can see there's sort of flowers. I think when it's blocked, once it's done, the flowers will show up better. And the color fade is not me. It's these gorgeous cakes I bought from Honor Ock Air that they call Lucky Charms. And when they're spinning their yarn on the machines, when they switch from one color to another, they don't just like clean the machine and then put on a new color, they just switch. And that means that you get these parts of the unspun where it fades from one color to another. And they only sell them to people who support them on Patreon, and which I do. And even though I'm mostly not buying yarn, when they said they had Lucky Charms, I just craved it and I let myself go for it. I've got quite a few of these in different colors. When I requested them, I just said, please give me as many colors as you can. And basically what I envision is a long wrap / scarf that will just be one color to another. I'm almost at the end of this first Lucky Charm. Started pink, faded to green, now it's sort of a orangey pink. And then I'm pretty sure next I'm going to use this one, which is a very different green, and then going to purple. And I'm kind of trying not to plan it out too much in advance. As I near the end of one Lucky Charm, that's when I let myself pick the next one. And we're just kind of playing this by feel. This is pure play. It's so good. It's so good. I don't know how much utility this is going to have. Is this going to be too delicate? Sometimes I really do feel like I'm knitting with eyelashes or something. But the process, this is really all about process, all about joy, and I think I probably will get to wear it as a wrap, and that is going to be such a joyful wear next winter. I'm just imagining wrapping myself in this multi-hued scarf, and kind of gives me shivers. It just sounds so good. All right, let's see. I think I took you through all of my works in progress. The Riggies, Virdek, NUTIDEN BLOMMOR, Grandpa Socks, Iris hat. Yeah, that's what I'm working on right now, which is plenty. Oh wait, I missed one. I knew there was something. This is my purse knitting, and it's almost done. I think I talked about this last time too, but it's pretty close to done now. This is my Musselburgh hat designed by Ysolda Teague. Again, yarn dyed by Anne Valley of Little Skein. And I'm making the large size because I've got a big head, and I'm supposed to knit this to a length of like around 20.5 inches, somewhere around there. I'm almost there. I think I've got 2 inches to go, and then I'll do the decreases for the brim and it'll be a hat. Probably done just in time for it not to be hat season anymore, but that's okay. I will enjoy this hat a lot next year. You can see the yarn is beautiful. When I block it, it's going to bloom and become so fuzzy and gorgeous. This is yarn with, I think it's 20% cashmere in it. And as I know, because I made my husband a hat with this yarn, it blocks beautifully. It's going to be a great hat. And it's just a great purse project. It's my purse project and my Zoom meeting project. This is my knitting when I want knitting and I don't have any brain to spare. So it's kind of the opposite of needing something to keep the gremlins engrossed. This is when the gremlins are fully engrossed in like a finance meeting or whatever I'm doing. And I just sit there and I knit in circles, and basically it's my version of a fidget. And I used to use socks for that, and maybe I still will sometimes. But this is totally a better project than a sock. Because a sock, you knit in circles, and then periodically you get something tricky like a heel, and then it doesn't work anymore as a mindless fidget. But this, I mean, all I had to do was just spend one day starting it, and then once I got to the knitting straight part, it really does feel like you're basically knitting straight forever. I mean, it's fingering weight yarn that I'm using right now, even though I only have 2 inches to go before I start the decreases. I mean, those 2 inches are gonna take a while. Probably another week or two, since I only knit on it sort of in the odd corners of life. But it's a good project. So that's my 6 active projects right now. It's a lot, but I'm really enjoying all of them. And I was at the beginning of the year, part of why I was sticking to works in progress was I really wanted some finished objects. I wanted something to wear that was new that I made, and I was mad at myself I didn't have anything. Now I've got this sweater, I've got the Blossom sweater, I've got a new pair of socks. It's getting warmer, and I decided to pivot from focusing on getting something done as soon as possible to just knitting for mental health, knitting for joy. And that's why I suddenly have 6 projects and I'm dancing around from one to the other, just sort of following my joy. I am going to try really hard, not to cast on a 7th project, not until something here gets done, and then I'll let myself cast on another project. So this should be it for a while. Get used to saying hi to these projects when I do my monthly update, I guess. But it's working for me. I'm hoping next time I see you, the iris hat will be done, and then maybe I can do something else in color work. That would be really fun. I don't know if you noticed, I can't remember, but I'm double fisting the drinks today. This is my coffee in my beloved coffee mug. I got this from an artist off Etsy. It's a sheep mug. I love it in part because there's a sheep on both sides. There's a black sheep and a white sheep. I drink my coffee out of this literally every morning. The artist doesn't just do sheep. My husband is a photographer as his hobby, and I got him for his birthday a very similar mug, except it's got old school, old-fashioned cameras all over it, and he loves it. He drinks his coffee out of that every morning. And then in my other fist, I've got some tea for when I don't feel like coffee. It's herbal tea, and you can see I'm kind of single-themed sometimes. This is a beautiful sheep mug. The person who does this is a more well-known potter. I'll try to see if I can link her below too. She also sells on Etsy. She's one of these people who, when she does an update, she sells out in 5 minutes or less. And I've heard, I've never been, but if you go to Rhinebeck, New York Sheep and Wool, I've heard that she's there, and there are huge lines of people wanting to buy her mugs. And honestly, when I read that, I was feeling some sadness at the fact that I wasn't at Rhinebeck, and that I may never go to Rhinebeck. Just the timing of it isn't good for me to fly across the country. And I thought, well, I can't be at Rhinebeck, but I can get one of those mugs, and I did. And I love this mug too. My only sadness is there's no sheepy on the other side. So I have to decide if other people get to see the sheep or if I get to see the sheep. But this is my mug I also use every day. It's my herbal tea mug. And finally, before I wrap up, I'll just tell you about some writing that I'm doing. I forgot to tell you last time that I had a blog post up on Ply Magazine. So if you haven't seen that yet, I'll link to it again below. It's Ply Magazine's blog is where it is. It's not in the magazine itself, but it's about spinning. It's called The Woolly Animal of Dawn, and I'm really proud of it. It's about spinning specifically for mental health. It talks, I tried to kind of be a poet as I wrote it, so it gets a little poetic, but it also talks about how spinning helps my mental health. It talks a little bit about EMDR therapy and how spinning may actually kind of mimic that, knitting as well. And it also includes some really pretty photos taken by my husband. He got up a little less than a year ago. He got up at 4 a.m. one morning to do a photo shoot as I spun as the sun rose in the middle of the summer. And that was not his normal waking time, so that was a big sacrifice on his part, and I love how his photos turned out. I really think they complement the article. So if you haven't, please go check that out. And then the other thing I've been writing this week, actually, this is sort of out of the box for me, but for reasons I won't go into, my Unitarian Universalist church that I'm a member of here in town was in need kind of at the last minute of some guest preachers to fill some empty spots in the schedule. And and it was announced at a meeting that it would be really helpful if anyone was willing to give a sermon. And I thought, I'm a writer, I can do that. So I am giving a sermon not that long from now, a little less than 2 weeks from now, actually. And I finished writing the first draft yesterday. I'm polishing it up. It'll be ready by then. I'm turning in a draft at the end of this week, just so they can make sure that it's okay. And I'm looking forward to it. And this will not shock you, but it's totally a sermon about knitting and spinning and fiber arts, of course. It's called A Daily Practice of Reliable Joy. And it's talking about how having a daily practice that brings you joy can help you to build resilience, just like I said at the beginning. So it talks about how the joy is wonderful for its own sake, but also it makes you more powerful, stronger. Joy has a purpose beyond feeling wonderful. And I hadn't fully realized that before. And I guess I try to convey some of that along with just my story of how I use that joy to help me through my various mental health brain gremlins that I've got. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm happy to use that as a way to serve, to be of service. And I'm happy for the opportunity to get to write something that I've never written before, that I never thought I would write before. It's like I didn't give a sermon on my bucket list, but I guess I should have, because it's exciting. And it will be recorded and broadcast online probably after the fact. I will share a link if you want to see a recording. My church also releases podcasts of the services, so that would be another option. If you wanted, you could listen to it on podcast form. So if that's something you're interested in checking out, I would love it if you did. And again, I'll keep you updated. I'll let you know how it goes. And with that, I hope you are well. I hope your gremlins are under control, maybe through knitting or spinning or something like that. And I wish you well. Thank you so much for being with me this long. If you've made it this far, please like, subscribe if you haven't, leave a comment. I love comments. I love getting to talk to all of you. And I'm still a teeny tiny channel. I don't even have 100 subscribers yet. So maybe with this one, I'll make it to 100. That would be cool. So you can help that happen by liking or commenting, because I think, from what I understand, that helps the algorithm figure out that I exist and that maybe there are people out there who would like to watch. So thank you so much, and I will talk to you probably in about a month.